You're so dramatic. That never even happened. You're overly emotional. Hi, I'm Dr. Janie Lacy, the CEO of Life Counseling Solutions and their creator of Woman Redeemed. And have you been on the receiving end of those statements? Because if you have, you may have been the victim of gaslighting. Gaslighting comes in so many forms, and I've been hearing this term more than a couple times already this past couple of weeks through clients and their situations. But when we think about gaslighting, it can be obvious or it can be subtle. And in some ways, the subtle forms can be the most harmful. Well, let me tell you how the term gaslighting came about. It was originated from the 1944 film Gaslit, right? And in this film, what you will see is it follows Paula through her emotional manipulation by none other than her husband, Gregory. And what Gregory does is he orchestrates pictures that disappear in the house. He makes noises in the attics, and the gas lights dim and brighten. And then what does he do? He then denies they're even happening, and he insists that Paula is just making it up, and she is losing her mind, that she's losing touch with reality. Did you relate with any of that? Has that happened to you? When we think about gaslighting in particular, it's a broad use term, but basically it describes one person treating another this way, making them think that they are crazy. And we'll usually see this in romantic relationships. But what it means is someone is purposely making someone doubt their own reality. And in its extreme, gaslighting can undermine a person's grip on reality. And in milder forms, we'll see it can undermine their trust in themselves and their own experience. And there are so many forms of gaslighting, but I quickly want to just go through one. And that is if you have grown up in an emotional, neglectful family, which is the most subtle form of gaslighting in family systems that I'll see through my therapy practice. And in fact, it's so subtle that it's difficult for many victims to even recall it even happening. It often happens in families that are otherwise caring, right? And I'll hear this from my clients say, oh, I grew up in a good childhood. I don't know why I'm this way, right? So there's also sometimes this gaslighting of yourself. But all it requires is that the parents are unaware. Parents are unaware of feelings in general. And they fail to notice their children's emotions and their emotional needs. And when you experience childhood emotional neglect, what we will see is that your emotions are largely ignored. So imagine this. Imagine that your parents act as if your arm doesn't even exist. It would be deeply confusing, and it would undermine your belief and trust in your own right arm. Well, think about this. The same thing happens when it's your feelings. But since your emotions are the deepest, most personal biological expression of who you are, when your parents treat your feelings as invisible, irrelevant, or meaningless, what do you think happens? You naturally feel like your inner self is erased. So when your parents don't acknowledge or respond to your needs, you are set up to doubt or ignore your deepest self. So what's the message here, Dr. Janie? Your feelings, what happens with the message with emotional neglectful families is the message that happens to you is your feelings are unnecessary. They're burdensome, and they're to be kept hidden or perhaps not even real. So what happens is you take on a message that your feelings and your emotional needs don't matter. You don't matter. Boom, your core wound is developed. So how does this impact me as an adult, Dr. Janie? It's often the question I'm asked. Well, you were never given the chance to learn the true value of your emotions. And since your emotions are a window into who you are, you don't feel like you know yourself. And sometimes you feel empty or numb. You have trouble trusting yourself because you don't have your emotions to direct you. And what I'll see in my clients, and perhaps this is you feel alone and disconnected from others. So what's the takeaway here? If you grew up with any form of gaslighting, and perhaps you can still be experiencing it if you grew in your family right now, especially if you grew up in a family that this was a common practice, it makes sense that you question yourself. But even though you can't change your childhood, you can change your perspective on it. And you can change how you think and you feel about yourself now. Now in the future, you will have answers to gaslighting attempts from others. So if someone says, you're so dramatic, you can say, you know what? Having natural human feelings is not a form of drama. Or if they said, oh, that never even happened, what you can say is it happened for me, so it matters. Or if they say, oh, you're overly emotional, Or maybe you have a low tolerance for other people's feelings. Boom. Or what if someone says to you, you shouldn't feel that way? How about you can say, well, that's your way of trying to make me doubt myself, and it's not working. So let's throw gaslighting out the window. And this is what is actually true. Your feelings, experiences, and needs are real. They matter, and they are worth standing up for. I'm Dr. Janie Lacy.